living with Grandma Sally, my sister-in-law, and got slammed by the neighborhood for dumping her care on my brother John and gallivanting around town. So, I hit up the downtown streets. Hunkering down in a back alley by a nightclub I'd heard about, 30 minutes passed. Then, a familiar voice hit my ears. "And, for real? You're funneling Grandma's pension and savings, even the remodel funds Jane sent, to your guy? Jane's in New York, she won't know." And flashed a chilling smirk for a sec. "She's all high and mighty 'cause she's working in New York. If Dad hadn't gone bankrupt, I'd be a CEO's daughter right now. Tough break. Wonder what Jane would think, seeing her beloved John and Sally wasting away together?" She shook with laughter. "Can't wait to call her over after blowing through the cash. It'll be a blast." I gritted my molars as Anne made her way down to the basement with bouncy steps. I feel like my body is getting extremely hot from my anger. I muttered angrily in my chest. "Just you wait. I'll make you regret everything." I'm Jane, a 30-year-old single woman. Moved to New York for vocational school, now working here. One day, John, my brother, hit me up to hang out in New York, and at a cafe, introduced me to a stunning woman. "Jane, nice to meet you. I'm Anne." She greeted me with a high-pitched voice, grabbing and shaking my hand wildly. Taken aback by her energy, but John watched us with a smile. Guess to the shy John, vibrant she was a sight for sore eyes. "Your workplace is around here, right? I used to live nearby. Lots of chic places, such a cool area." "Yes, indeed." I responded with a polite smile, still viewing and in a positive light at the time. A year later, John and Anne tied the knot. Helping with wedding prep before the guests arrived, Grandma Sally and I popped into John's dressing room. Anne's parents were there too, exchanging pleasantries. Then Anne saw Sally with her floral cane and scowled. "Ew, that's embarrassing." I couldn't just let that comment slide. Sally needed her cane today because standing for long periods makes her legs hurt. "And what do you mean by that?" I pressed her in a whisper while John was busy chatting with Anne's parents, and she looked caught before responding with a forced smile. "Just wondering why Sally even bothered coming. If her legs are bad, she should have just stayed home. Is she seeking attention?" I couldn't believe my ears. And snapped back. "She wanted to see her lovely granddaughter's big day. Is attending not allowed if she's a bit unsteady on her feet?" "I didn't say that." And averted her eyes and scratched her head. "We used to go to Grandma's after school since both parents were working. When our parents passed away years ago, she was a huge support. Why does she deserve such comments? What's going on here?" Caught by John, and put on a fake smile. "It's nothing. Time to get dressed." Switching places with the ceremony staff, Sally, I, and Anne's parents left the room. The uneasy feeling lingered, but I didn't want to dampen the wedding mood, so I kept this to myself. I didn't tell John about this and kept it to myself. He apparently planned to live with Sally after they got married, but she refused. After receiving advice from a care manager at the family hospital that it would be better to let Sally take care of herself if she could, the couple chose an apartment 5 minutes by car from Sally's house as their new home. Living in New York, I can only go to Sally's house during summer vacation and Christmas. I'm shocked by Anne's behavior on my next trip home. "John, it's embarrassing for a man to be in the kitchen." I almost objected, thinking it was an outdated view. John, who lived alone for years, is skilled in household chores and cooks better than I do. It would be a great help if you could help me with the cooking. "Is it so odd to cook at home? I think it's worse to leave everything to the sister or wife and just relax." And shook her head at John's troubled smile. "You're spoiling Sally too much. It's not a big deal adding 3 more meals. Seriously? It is a big deal. What's easy for one becomes a task when hosting your grandson and his wife. I doubt the nerve of Sally, who is over 80 years old, to do that. And, who makes such a statement, naturally feels like a guest's. As soon as she arrived at Sally's house, realized that it was hot, she ran into the living room, turned down the air conditioner, drank beer from the fridge, and lied down on the sofa, playing with her smartphone. And we're just 5 minutes away by car. Asin made herself at home. John and I went shopping and helped with chores. Sorry, you're our guests. It's okay. Just relax and watch TV, Sally. Even though I smile at Sally, who seems apologetic, she ends up going off to water the garden trees, probably because I'm the only one who feels bad about taking a break. However, I also felt that I could understand her desire to continue living alone. She lived alone for 20 years since your grandfather passed away, she set her own pace. Living with her grandson and his wife now would be stressful. But then, a situation arose. Sally needs care now. Mid-May, John called, sounding down. What? She seemed fine at Christmas. Her limbs are fine, but she struggles to swallow. We took her to her doctor, and they said her swallowing ability is declining, advised softer foods. The words pureed food and care meals came to mind. When he was a student, he worked part-time in the kitchen of a nursing home. Care meals? Prepping those is tough. Yeah. When I talked to Anne, she suggested we move in together. Makes sense. Even for a housewife, preparing Sally's meals 3 times a day is hard. I formally requested John's help. I feel bad imposing Sally's care on you, but please keep us posted. It's mainly meal prep and making sure she doesn't choke. Don't worry too much. I felt relieved after John's reassuring words. After I hung up the phone, I suddenly realized something. Leaving Sally's care entirely to them seemed inconsiderate. Should I offer financial help? How much? As I pondered and called. Did John tell you? About moving in together. Yes, thank you. It's reassuring to know you two will be looking after Sally. I expressed my gratitude wholeheartedly. I'd like to at least provide some financial assistance, but I'm not sure what's appropriate. Getting $2,000 a month would really help. That's fine. I'll send it to your account. Before I could finish, and interjected. While we're at it, could you also cover the renovation costs? We want to install handrails in the hallway and entrance, and make the water areas more accessible. Sally can walk fine now, but it's best not to wait until it's too late. I remembered how Anne had spoken ill of Sally using a cane on the wedding day. So her thoughtfulness now touched me. You're absolutely right. How much will it cost? About $20,000. I'll give you the account number, is that okay? Understood. I'll transfer $20,000 and $2,000 by the end of this month. From next month, I'll send $2,000 monthly. After transferring the money at the end of the month, I felt a bit relieved. However, for the next half year, I was too busy to contact John. Calling early in the morning or after 10 p.m. seemed impolite, even for siblings. I sent a few messages, but although they were read, I got no replies. Feeling suspicious yet unable to do much, time passed, and once things settled down, I called after lunch. This time, and answered John's phone. Hello? Long time no see. Can I speak to John? Please hold on. After a brief pause filled with some background noise, John came on the line. It's been a while. Sorry, I couldn't make it for Christmas. Can I visit this summer vacation? I was met with shouting in response. What are you coming for now? After you did nothing all this time. Indeed, not providing proper support and leaving Sally's care to my brother and his wife might make them think this way. But there was no need for such harsh words. Shocked by the outburst from the usually calm John, I stood frozen with my smartphone in hand until the call ended. Gathering myself, I dialed Anne's number again. What do you want? Sally's doing fine, so leave her be. Unfazed by the cold response, I pressed on. Is the renovation finished? It's been done for ages. Could you send me some photos then? I'd like to see how it turned out. And seemed reluctant. No. I'm busy. If you're so curious, why don't you come and see? It's a bit hard since it's a 2-hour flight one way. Right? So, leave it to me. And hung up abruptly, clearly flustered. I immediately booked a plane ticket. After wrapping up work early the next day, I caught a flight that weekend to visit the house where my brother's family was living with Sally. Approaching the house, I noticed familiar neighborhood housewives chatting in the shade. One of them approached me with a concerned look. Long time no see. Are you okay? Hello. What do you mean? Lately, I've heard John's frustrated voice around here. It's so unlike him. I was surprised. John works during the day, right? Haven't you heard? John quit his job to become a stay-at-home dad. This was news to me. Why hadn't Anne mentioned it? Given John's nature, he'd rather do things himself than rely on his wife. So, Anne's working then? The rumor is she's always at the nightclub. I immediately headed for the station. Seeing for myself was the quickest way. After a 30-minute train ride to the terminal station, I ventured into a part of town I'd never visited. The streets, crammed with old buildings, were littered with trash, and a seedy atmosphere hung in the air. It was dusk, and there weren't many pedestrians yet, but the gaudy signs were just starting to light up with neon. Even so, there were people trying to lure in customers on the sidewalk. I hid in the back alley behind the Target establishment and waited for about 30 minutes. Then, I heard a familiar voice. Today's the day I snag him for sure. But is that okay? John's taking care of Grandma, right? Approaching in high spirits down the night street were Anne, clad in a black camisole and heavy makeup, and a woman who seemed to be her friend. He's her grandson. It's only natural for him to look after her. But to take Grandma's pension and savings, even the renovation funds Jane sent, and blow it all on some guy. Jane's in New York. She won't know. And boasted with a chilling smirk. She acts all high and mighty because she's working in New York. If my dad hadn't gone bankrupt, I'd be a CEO's daughter right now. That's too bad. I wonder how Jane would feel seeing her dear John and Sally all skin and bones together. And shook with laughter. Let's use up all the money, then call her over. Can't wait. Watching Anne descend the stairs with a spring in her step, I clenched my jaw. A feeling close to hatred surged within me, and I glared at the entrance of the place long after they'd left. I was on the verge of exploding with anger. Just you watch. I'll make you regret everything you've done. Visiting the house where my brother, his wife, and Sally lived, I rang the doorbell set into the impressive stone wall surrounding the house. However, there was no sign of John or Sally coming to the door. So, I opened the gate, crossed the yard, and headed towards the main house. The weeds, usually well maintained around this time of year, were unusually overgrown. Ringing the doorbell by the entrance again yielded no response. The house remained silent. On a whim, I decided to walk further into the yard. There used to be an outbuilding that my grandfather had used as a study. Sure enough, as I pushed through the overgrown branches, a single-story building appeared. When I went to open the entrance, I was surprised to find a massive padlock on the doorknob. Puzzled only for a moment, I lifted an unnaturally placed flower pot and easily found the key underneath. Unlocking the door, I entered the house. "Enough already!" I jumped at John's shout. Peeking into the room, I saw Sally, with her small shoulders hunched, being scolded by John at the dining table. "Don't be so selfish. Think about what it's like to make 3 meals a day." "Lately, it's always soup. I want to eat something else. Food is one of my few pleasures." "John, don't raise your voice like that. Look, Sally's crying." Stepping between John and Sally, I was shocked by their appearance. Their faces were pale, with dark circles under their eyes, and they looked as thin as if they were ill. "This works out. I wasn't sure what Sally likes, so I bought a variety of things." I forced a bright voice and smiled at them. Laying out the care meals I bought from a drugstore on the way as a gift on the table, both John and Sally frowned. "Care meals should be homemade. Packaged ones are unhealthy." "It doesn't look very tasty." "That's not true at all." "John, lend me the key to the main house." "Here, eh? Isn't in here?" John looked puzzled. "Seems like it. Just wait here for a bit." I went to the main house's kitchen, plated the packaged care meals onto stylish dishes, warmed them in the microwave, and returned to the outbuilding. "Here you go. Try it, it's delicious." "John, read the package." Reluctantly accepting the dish I offered, Sally took a bite and smiled happily. "This is delicious. This is what I wanted." "It's scallop macaroni gratin. The combination of cheese and white sauce is great. The peach jelly looks good too." "There's some for us too, John. Let's eat." By the end of the meal, Sally's cheeks had a hint of color, and John's expression had softened. "Sorry, Sally. I've been irritable lately, always snapping at you." "John's been working hard to cook for us, and it was wrong of me to complain." As they apologized to each other, I asked them a question. "It's natural to be stressed if you're cooped up in a small room with only a tiny window. What's going on?" And said she wanted to work from home, so she asked us to live in the outbuilding. She said she can't concentrate on her computer work with us around. John looked at me with a displeased expression. I was waiting because and said once Jane gives us the renovation money, she'll make a room for Sally. But I guess she said she couldn't pay after all, huh? Even with a bathroom and air conditioning, such a small room for 2 people is stressful. "So that's why you said, after doing nothing until now." Understanding dawned on me, and I looked straight into John's eyes. "I did transfer the renovation funds. And I've been sending $2,000 every month." John's eyes widened in surprise. "What? John, do you know the online banking password?" "Yeah, it's a joint account with my wife." John and I went back to the main house, leaving Sally in the living room, and went upstairs. John checked the online banking app and exclaimed, "It's true! There was an initial $20,000 and then $2,000. After that, $2,000 has been transferred every month." John looked apologetic. "I'm sorry. Jane did provide support." "It's true that I've left Sally's care to you and Anne." "It's okay. But money has been withdrawn several times." "The $2,000 I transferred yesterday is still there, but it looks like it'll be gone by today." John gave me a sharp look. "Do you know something, Jane?" After hesitating, I shared what I had seen today. "And seems like a regular, huh? Did she say she wanted to work and asked you to take care of Sally?" "Yeah. But something's off. She brings home just enough groceries for cooking, but she's always irritable and seems to be under a lot of stress. John glanced at the bedside table and picked up a smartphone lying there, browsing through it. Was the smartphone taken away too? Looks like my card has been used without permission too. John grimaced as he checked the transaction history. Why don't you call the card company to freeze the card? And we need to transfer the remaining money to your account. Right. Let's do what we can now. John immediately took action. When John came back and we were relaxing in the living room, tidying up, his smartphone rang. He answered it on speaker, and Anne's voice, on the verge of tears, filled the room. What have you guys done to me? What's wrong? I couldn't pay at the nightclub and got arrested for fraud. John and I exchanged glances and shrugged. I asked over the phone. How much is it? $5,000. Should we cover it for you? Please. I'll go pay the club right now. Sighing, I got ready to leave. If Anne stayed detained, there'd be no hope of getting the money back. After withdrawing the money, I paid the nightclub, apologized, and picked up Anne from the police station, expecting her to show some remorse, and instead sulked and barely looked at me. When we got back, John was waiting at the entrance. Welcome back. Sorry to bother you when you're tired, but I have a lot of questions. Me too. First off, what did you do with the renovation funds? Thinking it would be a long conversation, we let Sally rest in the bedroom ahead of time, and seemed resigned to her fate. She took a sip of water at the dining table and glared at us with crossed legs. What's wrong with going to a nightclub to relieve work stress? John and I inadvertently looked at each other. With a puzzled look, John spoke up. And you haven't been going to work, have you? Of course not. I work remotely. I know I shouldn't have used the renovation funds for my stress relief and upskilling. John and I were at a loss for words. Spending money at a nightclub and on studying were entirely different matters. We understand the situation now. You should have just talked to us. I softened my tone as I addressed Anne. But don't ever lock them away in the outbuilding again. If you do it again, I'll report it. And make sure to pay back the debt quickly. Got it? I have work tomorrow, so let's leave it at that for now. I decided to back off for the moment. Given the large sum involved, I considered drafting a promissory note as I left the eldest son's house. A week later, I visited the couple again after dinner, only to be met by and with a look of exasperation. Unannounced visits are seriously annoying. I can see a mother-in-law problem brewing. Sorry about that. Just didn't want you to run off. I smiled at Anne. John, who had been informed of my visit, appeared in the living room in time to meet me. How's Sally? We let her go to bed early tonight. That's probably for the best. I had Anne write a promissory note and then presented her with documents from a detective agency. Anne's face twisted. And I heard you were boasting at the nightclub. You started trading stocks without any study and suffered big losses. But since you got $20,000, you decided to invest it to make up for your losses. So, the job was a lie? It's not like slot machines or horse racing. You need knowledge to trade stocks. I nodded in agreement with John's sensible words. As a result, Anne's venture into stocks resulted in a significant loss, turning the $20,000 into zero. And you used the monthly $2,000 for nights out at the club, covering the shortfall with Sally's pension and savings, and even John's credit card. It's your fault for leaving the PIN written somewhere accessible. John shifted his gaze from Anne, who was defiant, to me. We can claim damages, right? Of course. she must pay for her reckless spending. Good. Then there's the divorce papers. For the first time, the previously assertive end showed confusion. You're joking, right? If you divorce me now, I'll be left with a huge debt. You're not saying you'll kick me out of the house in that state, are you? That's not my problem. You did as you pleased. I just want to get the divorce over with and start over with Sally. And paled at John's icy attitude. She had assumed John, being the kind person he was, would forgive her if she apologized. And got off her chair and tearfully apologized at John's feet. I'm sorry. I just got carried away with stocks. The nightclub was just a whim. I promise I won't do it again. Please, just give me one more chance. John's stern expression softened a bit as Anne sobbed. Just as John was about to meet Anne's gaze, Sally peeked out. It's awfully noisy, isn't it? Sorry, Sally. We're just finishing up our talk. When John looked back, Sally showed him her tablet with an innocent smile. This thing John lent me is fascinating. It's got so many buttons, makes me want to try them all. Sally, sorry, but we're in the middle of an important conversation. As I tried to interrupt, Sally tapped an app on the screen. Suddenly, a loud recording of Anne's voice filled the room. It's fine. John's simple and easy, so even if he finds out, just cry a bit, and he'll forgive me. Exactly. I'll have him look after Sally and get Jane to pay for our living expenses, then I can have fun without working. John glared at Anne, furious. She turned pale, stuttering in her attempt at an explanation. That was just a joke to a friend, hey! Don't record me without permission! I thought I'd keep quiet depending on how you acted. But I can't stand by and watch John get trampled on. I'm not that nice. With a serene tone, Sally gave John a meaningful look. John silently lowered his gaze. I'll contact a lawyer tomorrow. We'll decide on the compensation after that. And, looking stunned, drooped her shoulders. John and Anne divorced. The monthly $2,000 I had been sending, totaling $10,000 for 6 months, the renovation funds of $20,000, the recent nightclub fee of $5,000. Plus the misused pension and savings of Sally, John's credit card charges, and compensation, amounted to an owing John around $80,000. With almost nothing left in her account and unable to pay, but John eager to sever ties quickly, and took out loans to settle the full amount. After I covered the nightclub charge, and lost the trust of the local establishments and was banned from all nearby eateries. Moving to an old apartment, and juggles multiple part-time jobs from early morning to late night to repay her debts and support herself. Motivated by my work being recognized, I became independent and moved back to my hometown, renting an apartment close to where Sally and John live. Between work, I help with Sally's medical appointments and shopping, ensuring John doesn't bear the burden alone. After the divorce, John, initially downcast, found a morning job and started to regain his spirits as he became busier. Together, John and I pooled funds for renovations, consulting with Sally's care manager and the hospital, planning the improvements as a team. Currently, John and Sally are living in the outbuilding, looking forward to a more comfortable home. John, I've done a lot of reflecting on this whole situation. On a Sunday, during a break from weeding in the balcony, I struck up a conversation with John. About what? The renovation issue. I realized I was pushing too much onto you. I thought just contributing money was enough. Jane was busy. It can't be helped. It's my fault for not seeing and for who she was, causing Sally and you trouble. Sipping his coffee, John smiled gently. I shook my head, holding my cup of milk tea. We shouldn't take each other for granted just because we're family. We need to communicate more. From now on, I want to devote myself to Sally as a way of giving back. Sally, don't hesitate to ask for anything. Inside, engrossed in cat videos on her tablet, Sally smiled warmly at my words. Having you two together like this is more than enough for me.